Welcome to the Big Cheese AI podcast. I'll be your host today. I'm Sean Heiss. I'm here, as always, with my counterparts, Brandon Corbin.
Good day, sir.
And Jacob Wise.
Hello.
It's just us three today. We had a cancellation with our guests, so we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
You know, we've actually got a lot of cool things to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about some really interesting news, maybe not so interesting after further research. We've got ChatGPT voice. We've got iOS 18.1 with the first Apple Intelligence features now being released to anybody who likes to install betas, which I'm still on the fence about. We've got a new LLAMA model. We've got Search GPT. But the biggest news of the week is, and no one reacted to it on the Slack channel. Taco Bell is rolling out AI in the drive-thru.
Yeah, I didn't read that article. Did they say which software? Were they going with Google?
So check this out. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But what I thought was interesting is that they're going to be able to be more accurate than they're finding that just having AI listen to the orders, categorize it, and map it to items is saving the people in the stores a bunch of time, and it's more accurate than a human doing it.
So I thought is maybe last month that they had done some trials, but then they turned it off.
Yeah, I think they're actually going to start rolling it out by the end of the year.
Because there was something that
other
happened.
chains dropped it and they were there's a couple of big startups in that space.
Right.
And there was another chain that we talked about on 2 shows ago, and I forget now, I'm blanking on it, but they were just it was causing a lot of confusion. And then there was a TikTok. Yeah, a TikTok or someone, no, I don't want a million.
So when I go ask for my chili chilizy beezy, the human always knows I mean chili cheese burrito.
Yeah.
They do. The AI will probably, they'll have to make a best hallucination. Who doesn't love a surprise in their Taco Bell bag anyways?
Right.
Dude, I miss Taco Bell. Yeah.
Well, Taco Bell's so great because they have 5 ingredients and they're just hit the remix button.
Exactly.
Some combination of these things.
Well, it does kind of point to the fact that we continue to see the applications of just large language models really being where the innovation is,
right,
and taking mental load off people being where it adds the most value.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it adds value, trying not to deal with, putting orders in the queue and dealing with customer service, that's something that actually can make people's lives easier. I think that makes them more productive. I think it makes the lines go faster. It doesn't kill, I don't think that necessarily kills jobs or anything. I mean, it's just.
Well, wasn't it too though that McDonald's was exploring about having fully remote, when you were actually talking to somebody, it was somebody in a call center.
Wendy's did it for sure.
Yeah, I've felt that before. When the person on the other line definitely wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've obviously had this business problem in the past, and
I don't know, man. I think fast food restaurants are going in 10 years. I don't think they have any employees.
Oh,
Maybe 1 or 2. That's just the manager who just goes in, makes sure that everything's stocked, but the rest of it's just fully automated because it's going to get too expensive. If they ever actually increase the minimum wage from the $7 or whatever it is, it's going to become cost prohibitive.
That's idiocracy, right? You just go up to the ATM and get a big ass burrito.
Hulk Hogan on the Trump, whatever that thing he was at, literally was a scene straight out of Idiocracy.
I could not believe it.
Dude, it was bananas.
So last night we all went to our local, for those who are more of our national listeners, we were from Indianapolis.
Yep.
And Indianapolis has a lot of startups, and the ecosystem is really built around marketing, but there's also a pretty good developer community. They had, shout out to Zach Cardwell, Indie Hackers threw an event last night. We were hanging out with almost 250 250 last night?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was awesome.
Those 250 signed up. I bet 150 showed up, maybe more.
It felt like more, yeah.
It was really, really cool experience. I mean, obviously the industry's alive and well. We talked to people that are gainfully employed. There wasn't a ton of AI conversation, but we definitely saw the antithesis of that, which one company I talked to was marketing their product because it doesn't use AI.
Yeah.
Because we've been hearing this, a lot of the boards are really concerned about security and privacy.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're talking about your data. So I thought that was interesting. You guys have any other takeaways?
No, I was kind of surprised that we didn't have more Oh, and I did that thing too on LinkedIn where I asked like, hey, are you an Indianapolis startup that's doing AI? And we had a couple that like reached out. And so if you're actually watching this show to talk about, we're going to be saving that for when our other guest comes back in. We'll drop your names on it. Matt, you can come on anytime now. But I was surprised that there wasn't as many just like pure AI plays. But I was also surprised that there was just not as many that are just even leveraging AI for different parts of their technology stack, right? Like, because again, you don't have to be an AI startup. You can just be a regular startup, but you can start trying to leverage AI to kind of improve things. But yeah, there just wasn't as much conversation about that as I would have expected.
No, I didn't hear as much.
I will say when I go to like the more junior developer meetups, it's all we talk about. The junior devs are just like, what do I need to know?
Right.
And I feel like more seasoned people, like I use it. We all use it in our tool chain or like, while we develop, but it's still just a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And it used to be really, it's exciting, but it's just another tool. It's a calculator at this point.
So like quick, and I have young children, been in and out of that networking game for years, but like one of the takeaways I had, and this is just more of an ecosystem thing, is like we hit the ground hard around 2016 to 2017. And it wasn't AI, but for us, it was front end tech. It was the dawn of React and Vue and all these different technologies that led people to build really cool, really, really, impressive apps. And like, there was a lot of job growth out of that, a lot of startups getting created. I did sense a little bit of, that theme kind of calming down a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are out there kind of grinding. But do you think that there's a sense that like the engineer or the developer is becoming like less of this like, unbelievable opportunity and more of like just another desk job kind of concept? Like, I kind of got that feeling.
I'll chime in. I feel like, so we've been running an agency and you've been developing for a long time. And I feel like there was a golden age of become a developer. The dream was clear. You don't love your job. You're not super passionate about it. You're not making a lot of money. If you go to a boot camp or self-teach for a few months and learn a solid front end or any coding application or technology, you can get a great job. It's high paying. It's pretty easy, quote unquote, to do. That is no longer the case.
No, it's not.
And I think that is translating not just to the junior or kind of entry level positions, but sort of the higher up the chain where every engineer I talk to is more of a hybrid position at this point, where I actually did have a conversation last night with someone about, what do you think about outsourcing and managing outsourced resources? And I'm like, it's the same. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But like, I'm of the opinion of the good thing about technology and learning is it's easy to do if you have an internet connection and a computer.
True.
So I still think there's a lot to, especially in American culture, like you need to translate business ideas into real world, you need to solve those real world problems, which I think we are better positioned to do. But the coding aspect of it, anyone can do it. You just need to make sure that they're solving and doing the problem, solving it in a responsible way.
Right. So I kind of lean that way too, is that you're starting to see before, like, maybe 10 years ago, everybody wanted to try to do outsourcing. Everybody goes and they do outsource, and then they realize that the amount of tech debt that they just inherited from those people were just insane.
Yeah, and that's
still see that today.
Yeah,
but it's definitely gotten way better. Like, so where you can have these development teams that are, in, India or Pakistan or wherever, and that they're actually really very capable people. Like the folks, folks with one of my clients that pretty much only uses this development group out of Pakistan. And those guys are absolute rock stars. Yeah. Like, I'm blown away. I mean, even like the designs that they do, like which usually historically hasn't been the case, right? Like, you'd only let them do development. You wouldn't let them do design. Now I kind of come up with the high level kind of wireframe of what I'm looking for, and then I can give it to them, and then they go and they just nail it. And it's beautiful.
What's the feedback loop look like with them? Are they?
So pretty much it's pretty well locked down. So like if I can go into Trello and put in a backlog issue or whatever, and then I can just kind of watch it kind of flow through. I have access to all the Figma docs. So I basically have my own Figma. I do my designs. I give it to them. Then they kind of bring it into their own, and then they start applying all their own stuff to it. And I just go in there and I kind of give feedback, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And do they? is this a small enough group that like all the
yeah. So and they're paid very well.
Okay.
So that's another big thing too. Is like if you're going to work with them, they're going to tell you that they'll work for $30 an hour. But if you all of a sudden say, you know what, actually I'm willing to pay you $50 an hour. Now you become way more important to them, right? Because they're not making that kind of money. And then all of a sudden they start making that money. They're going to want to love on you forever. Yeah. And so
that's a good point. What I've seen not work in the past is leveraging outsourcing too much. You don't pay them enough. Yeah. And then they just cycle out the good guys somewhere else to another project.
100%.
They'll stick the good. There's not that they're not bad developers, but they're going to have one all-star. And Sean can speak to this much more, I think, but they'll have one all-star, they'll put front and center, they'll do the heavy lifting in the beginning, and then they'll just, skate away. You're like, oh, what happened to this good work?
And then the normal guys come in and just start butchering stuff. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, rolling over resources is tough. Getting people to do work for you and at a reasonable rate and having a ongoing long-term relationship is the best way to build software. Yeah. It's much different than other types of projects because, you build knowledge. That knowledge has to be shared, and you're much better off if that's why people like to have a tech co-founder or somebody. They're like, or they want somebody that's going to last. And for us, almost all our clients are long-term because they're like, well, these guys, we know we can rely on them. They know our stuff. They rebuilt it. They built it again. And they can keep going. I think the other thing that I'd love to get more, it just makes me want to get out into the community and learn more. But you think that with AI and where we're at with our own productivity, where we've attested to our own acceleration of productivity, that you're seeing. I'm not necessarily like seeing people say, you know what, man, I'm twice as fast as I used to be. And I think maybe it's the podcast, maybe it's just the excitement we have and all the stuff we've learned. But like, I wish developers were. I just don't think that's popped into their head how magical this brain that you have access to can be.
So I have a couple friends, and they're younger than me, right? So they're, I don't know, maybe anywhere from 28 to 35, and they're developers who refuse to use AI. And it's just like, no, it's dog shit, not going to use it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, we know people age out of technology, right? Eventually they stop becoming a developer, they become a manager, or they do whatever, right? And so like, I'm kind of wondering maybe that's these guys are like, just, this is their first kind of step into that aging out. But I couldn't believe it because like, a few of these dudes are like super brilliant developers and they're just like, I will not use AI. And it's just like, that kind of seems very limiting.
Is it because sometimes the code that's produced is kind of mid?
Sure. Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe. But there's so many different things. Right. It's not like we're just having AI write our code for us.
I think that's the problem is people, and this is the same, we've all gone through this kind of life cycle of, oh, it's going to do everything, and then you try to make it do everything, and then you're like, it actually might be better if I just did that myself. Right. And then you cycle back, you try it again, and then you find where it fits into your workflow and actually adds value. Because it's obvious, like it's novel at first, but when it's actually adding value, that's when you keep going back to the well and you keep using it. And I'm finding myself doing it, but not as much as like code this function, but brainstorming or
help me architect
get me
this thing
unstuck from errors kind of stuff. Yeah,
I will say so. I'm now a Claude. So I'm paying Claude now, and I finally got the artifacts thing figured out. You have to go into the settings and enable it or whatever. But then once I've done it, still I don't like the overall user experience of Claude. I think needs a lot of help. It's not bad looking. There's just a lot of clunkiness to it. Nevertheless, I went and basically said, hey, here's a WordPress plugin that I want because now I had to get back into a WordPress for another project that I'm doing. And I was like, I want you to create a WordPress plugin. Here's exactly what I wanted to do. And I actually just provided it user stories. So I just said, as a user, I want to be able to see all of the pages that were created off this template and blah, 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 blah. And sure, now again, no non-developer would have been able to make this thing work, right? Yeah. So that's a very important thing that like you still have to kind of know what you're doing.
I think that there's an opportunity to formalize a AI-enabled developer, right? Mm-hmm. And actually give specific use cases. Because I think there's brainstorming architecture ideas. There's scaffolding out applications, right, which is nobody likes to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody likes to create. Okay, I'm gonna have to create 60 files today.
That's why there's so many frameworks, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that there's also outsourcing commodity stuff to AI so your mental load is decreased.
Right.
And I think that there's just I think that some people look at it and they go, well, they just don't know. They're like, you can't say I don't use AI.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Unless you're saying I don't like to be productive.
Well, and I also think the advantage is like we use it a lot to prep for the show. Yeah. So we are forcing ourselves to use it and finding, so it's basically like that's forcing us to find the use cases that work for us. If you're a busy developer that's against a bunch of deadlines, you maybe don't have the freedom to play around. And if something's not making you more productive, you're going to throw that tool away.
That's very true.
And I've been researching some of the stuff that's going on with Microsoft Copilot adoption, Apple Intelligence. And I think if you're looking to get into this or you're looking to figure out who's going to win, I've been waffling between a lot of the stuff. You've heard it on the podcast, but I'm going back to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I'm putting them way back into the driver's seat because I think an underestimated thing is actual understanding of user behavior. Mm-hmm. And they have so many users using AI. Yeah. And they continue to iterate. And I just keep going back to that tool because of the experience. Yeah, the model might not be perfect. I know Claude is great, and there's other ones that keep coming out. But based off of some of the experiences I've had lately, I feel like they're a lot further ahead. And tools like that, right? Tools like that these model first companies that are coming out that are enabling these these chat based or other experiences versus. It's kind of, which we've had in the other premise, which is, okay, all big tech's going to win this. The personal AI race or the AI in the workforce race is going to be won by Microsoft and Microsoft Copilot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be won at the personal level by Apple and Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
And I as time goes on and more people continue to use companies like OpenAI in 10 years might be $1 trillion market cap company.
Yeah.
They might not get acquired. They might be just as big. I mean, the more I use that tool and the more other people do as well, the stronger they're going to get.
Yeah. It'll be interesting though, like what type of protections. So again, from my standpoint, I do like 4.0 as a model, right? That's
what I use every day.
Yeah. So in 4.0 Mini, which I just started playing with, which is literally like 80 times cheaper than 4.0. Like, I mean, it's crazy how much cheaper it actually is. And it's not meant to like it's not so chatty. It's much more like a haiku, what the hell is it? Claude Haiku or other small, like really small models.
Yeah.
But that one's actually really, really good. And I think there's a ton that you could do with that. Like you could multi-shot like 15 different queries to it and just like do all this crazy stuff and your costs are going to be really manageable.
Well, yeah, and it's actually cost effective now to personalize ads per individual.
Yeah.
So
totally.
So like Google has
That's a great idea.
Well, I read it somewhere, so that wasn't my idea. But the point was like well received where it's like, all right, Google knows my shopping habits, viewing habits, and they can throw that into a model. And they have their own mini models, but
it's like when Tom Cruise walks into the retail store in Minority Report and he'd stolen that Asian guy's eyes. You remember that?
Yeah.
And it's like, hello, Dr. Quasimodo, would you like to wear those khaki pants again?
Yeah, no, we're basically creating Minority Report.
Yeah,
the only thing you guys use Google's personalized search result thing. Okay. Yeah. So I love it because it's so relevant because it knows exactly what I've been looking for. What I don't like is I accidentally leave it and come back and it refreshes the whole page. And there was something at the top that I was like, oh, that looked interesting. But now I'm not gonna, what am I going to do? Go look for it?
That's the worst, honestly. Like, and that's one thing I hate about these intelligent feeds is that same exact problem, right? Like then you accidentally refresh or you do something and now it's gone. Like you're never going to see that piece again. It was just like, no.
So some news, okay, real quick. Shifting gears, we had kind of this like, big news week, but also come with a dud. Okay. And we're going to start though with Apple Intelligence. All right. So iOS 18.1 is out. It's a beta. Also Mac OS Sequoia Beta 4 is out. So if you want to try Xcode 16 and actually build apps with their new code completion tooling in Xcode, you can do that. And obviously if you want to build anything to the iOS 18.1 anyways, you have to upgrade that anyways.
Oh, sure.
The actual Swift SDKs are not available. So one of the big things about Apple Intelligence is it's going to come with these SDKs that allow you to leverage the image playground. It allows you to edit, utilize the writing tools inside of your apps. Apple's play there is get these APIs in the hands of developers, have developers enhance their apps, kill Grammarly. Just kidding. Right. And enhance the entire ecosystem. That's generally what they do.
Yeah.
The actual operating system though, 18.1 was the first time where they introduced Apple Intelligence, and you have to get on a wait list once you download it. But I did that and I got off the wait list in actually like almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just couldn't believe how limited it was. I think that there's like an underlying like base layer that they're putting in here when it comes to the on-device AI, the models. But Siri was just as dumb.
Well, didn't you say it output a result with Markdown and didn't like it just didn't even format it for its own reader?
So the only writing tool app that has been updated is the Notes app. Okay, and what you can do is you can select your content. You have a new, it's all integrated into Apple's core UI features, right? That's the great thing about Apple is they're going to build this in. There's not some new button or anything. Yeah. It's built into their existing way you use apps. It's not going to be necessarily some magical new thing. They do have a little icon that they're using for AI, similar to what Microsoft is doing. Those little
the stars
thing. It's a different icon, but
right.
But any app that has text is going to have this writing tools overlay. And the writing tools overlay has different AI-enabled tools like summarize, make more professional, make more loose, whatever. Well, if you select a group of text, it's doing that on-device AI and summarizing it, but it was returning the raw markdown. So you're giving it formatted text, and they released this in a beta.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope that this forces them to then make the Notes app basically just be able to render out Markdown and let me even write in Markdown, kind of like what Notion does, right? You can go, and you can even enable that in Google Docs where you can write
Which doesn't work all the time, by the way, especially in copy and paste in Google Docs.
In Google Docs,
Notion always works.
Dude. Yeah. Notion. So here's a little tip for you guys. Because one thing that sucks about using any of these large language models is they all output Markdown. Right? Like 99% of their output is all Markdown. So when you copy that and then you go paste it into an email, you get all your Markdown format and you're like, well, this doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So what you do is you copy it, you go paste it into Notion, and then you copy from Notion to wherever your destination is, and it's perfectly formatted.
I've had Markdown to text tab open on my computer for the last month. So thanks for that tip.
VS Code has a good plugin as well for that. But also what I've been doing, because I have a automation that's running every day for my calendar, I have it, I just say like, format this for email instead.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But that's extra typing.
Well, so side note, because we're fucking have no purpose today other than chaos. Tell us a little bit about your calendar automation that you set up.
Oh, yeah. So I have a really bad memory, and I wanted a daily reminder of events for me and my girlfriend that are coming up for the next couple days. So I'm using a open source tool called Active Pieces.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It's like make.com, but it's open source. You can run it in your own.
Activepieces.com?
Active Pieces, yeah.
Or is that just the name of the project?
That's the name of the project.
Look for it on GitHub.
Just search for it.
They have
so
they do have a cloud paid version, just like Zapier or Make, but they have a self-hosted version, which I'm hosting on a computer just running at my house right now, which I love. But anyway, so I have this automation that it on a schedule every morning at 8 a.m. It goes and gets my next 10 calendar events, which I guess I should probably adjust that to be the next 7 days. But anyway, it does that, and then it makes a list for me. but it uses ChatGPT 4.0 mini.
Okay.
To get a one-word description of like what's coming up.
Wait a minute. Okay, so you're only using ChatGPT to generate your.
No, the first thing I do. I have it it's like 7 steps. So first thing I do is like give me a one-word description of what's coming up. Then I send that to Giphy or whatever to get me a GIF or GIF for the top of the email. That's like the most fun part is me and my girlfriend are like, oh, what's the GIF of the day? And then I send it to ChatGPT to format some things. Okay. Right. And then I have some JavaScript that's like just taking that formatted data and actually outputting it to HTML.
But isn't that a great example of, I don't think this is another thing people might not realize use cases with AI is a large language model is great for inserting itself into workflows.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because you can take in a workflow, you have an output from each step.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't want to go code and map fields and interpolate the responses in code. You just want it to figure it out. Yeah. So you can tell the prompt, you can say, okay, output 1, send it. It can kind of reason a little bit about what needs to get sent to the next step, or it can summarize it, or it can make it pretty, or you know what I mean?
First step,
that eliminates a lot of problems.
Yeah. The first step I did just say, take this structured data and write it into an email. Then I thought, well, instead of using ChatGPT every time to do that, I just had it write the code that took because it comes back in JSON from Google Calendars or whatever. Right. So I'm still using it and it's great. I'm pretty proud of that.
So just other takeaways from Apple Intelligence. It is highly integrated with Siri. Siri now has this amazing, beautiful animation around the outside, which you can see.
Can you show the camera?
So you can see that as we're talking to Siri.
No, stop.
There's a very limited feature set, which is a little concerning considering this is a beta 4 or whatever it is. Yeah. There's something that they're calling AI that was very interesting to me. I could not get it. I don't believe it was available on iPadOS 18.1, but you know how you have focus mode? Mm-hmm. So focus mode, you kind of pick the apps in your different modes that you might want to get notified by.
Right.
18.1 ships with a feature that will basically say, hey, go AI focus mode. Ooh. And it'll only escalate push notifications that it thinks are important. Which might be good for you, who still has Gmail notifications turned on. Right? Right? And maybe I would consider doing that because I do want to get notified sometimes of a Slack message or a Gmail. And I, for years I turned that off and I turned it back on because I was like, this is making me less efficient.
Yeah. I turned them all off. And of course I do miss emails from time to time, but it'd be nice if something bubbled up that was maybe more time sensitive.
Yeah, like fraud alert, you know? So that is and we're going to get to that. That's the missing piece that you're just not seeing. And you're going to see that when developers, because I think they're just still putting the foundation in for the house, for the hotel, for the skyscraper. The software is not caught up yet.
I think what's really important to note is one, it's on device. So developers, there's not an increase in cost to the software, maybe a little bit of a battery usage cost, but they're laying the foundation for to enable all of these apps to use some pretty powerful things. Maybe not this generation, but maybe the next. And they're also making everybody upgrade. If you want,
well, you have to have 15 max. Pro.
So literally, that's
the reason why I got this iPad.
Yeah.
I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, my iPad.
So here's the issue with Apple: forcing people into an upgrade cycle to get a suite of tools that isn't ready for mass user adoption could really hurt their brand. Because I do think that Google shipping their mini model, their ability to, they've built a little bit more around the AI tool chain and space than Apple has.
Yeah.
And I think Apple's going to really rely on their developer ecosystem to build this stuff out.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be ready in a couple months. I think it's going to be
wild.
I think it's going to take a while. I think that, Apple's slow approach may end up winning, but in the short term, I think they're going to take some lumps.
Well, so think about the ChatGPT, the voice thing that we were talking about 3 months ago or 2 months ago, whatever it was, right? Where we were all excited about the latency free. Yeah. But they were so they always blamed it on safety. that the reason we couldn't release it right now is safety.
Their blog posts are so elitist on their website. Oh yeah, they're always like, we had to refine it so it was ready for our, really ready for our users. It was not polished enough, and just the way they talk, like that thing they posted with Elon and all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, right. ChatGPT voice. They said, oh, it's out.
Yeah,
news comes out.
No,
clickbait.
And then
it's not out.
It's
They're rolling it out to like people that the 1% of their user base.
Yeah. So, but I think what happens is these companies get so confident, and then they're just not thinking that, again, we're putting like these little thinking programs who can kind of act on their own into our systems, and you don't have necessarily the infrastructure or the QA processes or anything for that to really be able to put it through its paces. And then some QA guy just types in something and it goes, boom. It's like, oh my God, guys, hold on a minute. We can't do this. And it scares me that when companies like Apple or even Google or Samsung and the stuff that they're trying to do, and they're saying, yeah, this is going to be coming, that, yeah, we're kind of back in this wild, wild west time. And I kind of like it.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think that we're in this weird time where, the kids are going back to school. Everybody's announcing all this stuff, but it's not really there yet.
Yeah.
But it's all stuff like, I'm just based off ChatGPT voices, the existing functionality. I think that it's a fantastic tool.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I could see myself having that her type of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do it when I'm driving. Like if I have a new thing that I kick it off and I just start having a conversation and just kind of work through. But again, the latency is kind of annoying. But like if you want to have a real conversation, so that's why I was so pumped for that latency 0, and it was just like, just give it to me. So every day I go in, I check, and I still don't have it. But yeah.
Changing the subject a little bit, but I forgot I played around with this week. Have you guys cloned your voices with any tools yet?
No, Jacob did. It was damn scary.
Was it?
Yes. 11 Labs, which, by the way, real pro tip for real world usage. Sean was building an app that he wanted a sound effect for, and 11 Labs has an amazing sound effect creation tool.
Ooh.
So it's like you want something very specific. It was like a poppy, happy
so
sound.
we were building a barcode scanner.
Yeah.
We built with ChatGPT in Rust, and I don't know anything about Rust, and it works perfectly.
Right.
So people that don't use AI.
Not only Rust though, it was Rust to
it was C++ to Rust
and then Rust to WASM.
Rust to WASM.
Right, so you can run it in the browser.
I don't know anything about those technologies, and I just shipped a fully working barcode scanner that I could probably sell and license.
Yeah.
And the sound effect came from 11 Labs.
Yes.
That was my contribution.
It was perfect though.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's very cool. No, I haven't. So how long did it take for it to train your voice?
Oh, just 1 30-second sound bit. Yeah.
No way.
And
it sounded a lot like him.
Yeah. I would say I was talking I was just reading something on the screen, so I was talking very.
You didn't have as much of your personality, but if it sound, I mean, I would not have been able to tell.
I want to play around with it and have a little bit more energetic conversation, because I was just reading stuff off the screen and it very much sounds like me being like, hello, I am very, but
couldn't you just take some snippets from the podcast?
Yeah, I could. I could.
Right.
I was going to, I'm not going to do it because that's mean to my mom, but I was going to write up a script to try to trick my mom.
I'm in prison in Mexico.
Yeah. And she'd be like, say less. My mom would run to Mexico.
That
says more about
Speaking
her,
of which, so if you go to on iOS 18.1, if you do this, it pops open a chat GPT style conversation with Siri.
Whoa.
Yep. So there's 2 ways to use Siri now. And I think this is where they're heading, where you pull up Siri and you have that chat style conversation with her. And it doesn't work well. How are the Olympics
going?
You're
kicking off everybody's Siri, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, if it can help me find files faster on my computer.
I mean,
that's cool.
It can just quickly start a chat conversation with Siri.
Right.
But all of the responses and I don't know if this was a good idea. Their product, they're so smart product wise. All of their responses are not, it's not her talking right now. It's them giving you back the data in that way that it wants to do that.
Right.
I don't hate that. I think that the chat responses is very rarely the best way. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I'm talking to my Google Home Assistant at home, or oh my God, at my house, it's like home. I'm trying to get a recipe or something like that. And it's just like, according to recipes.com on February 20, I'm like, okay, just tell me the ounces or whatever the hell I asked, you know? It'd be nice to have a screen associated with, now that's obviously a limitation of an audio or a speaker.
Right. But I think there's no doubt that so you had the Amazon Home they came out with their little screen one. I think Google has one. Surely Apple will have the Apple Home. Or the HomePod, I guess is what it's called.
Yeah.
I love my HomePod.
So wait, are you pro? Do you like that it's more or more like visual, or do you want it to be Siri talking back to you?
I didn't trust my own opinion on this Apple Intelligence review. So I went and watched a bunch of other ones on YouTube, and there were some people that were really seeing it and really seeing the potential of it. And like, I can really see this integrating into my workflow. Now, a lot of them were using the phone. Which is, your phone is like your live and die. Yeah. And I think that some of the features are more built out on the phone than an iPad experience. Yeah. But I just have always loathed Siri.
Yeah.
And
Siri's always been really bad.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And I've used ChatGPT voice and I like it.
Yep.
So what's the dang difference?
Yeah.
So anyways, I think it's way too early to tell on Apple Intelligence. They're advertising all this stuff that doesn't exist. App integrations, telling Siri to order.
Genmoji.
Genmoji, that's not in there. Image Playground's not in there.
So no way to even get to ChatGPT.
The only things that are in Apple Intelligence right now
on the iPad.
On the iPhone. iPad's even less. On the iPhone, you have summarize a web page with Safari. You have summarize an email in Mail, priority inbox, writing tools and notes. You have an enhanced Siri.
Yeah.
And then you just have the overall opt into an Apple Intelligence workflow and whatever it did to ship the model.
Does the Safari here then have the iPad? It does. It's not on the iPad?
Nope.
We were talking about this earlier this week, but do you think there will ever be a day where they're just listening to us all day long, and then at the end of the day they can be like, hey, Jacob, you mentioned you needed to do X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely, dude. That would be a killer feature, too, especially if it's just on device, right? That's the
it would scare me. I mean, it scares me either way, but it would scare me a lot more if it wasn't only on device.
It has to be on device.
Secure enclaves, if it even ships, I think is enough to lay the foundation for an unbelievable amount of things that you would let AI do that you otherwise wouldn't.
Right.
Because it's secure and it's on device and it's completely obfuscated. And through your work with prompt privacy how important that is.
Oh, it's
we were talking about it yesterday. How do we operationalize AI in a SaaS product where it's like HIPAA times 5?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think people have a good answer for that.
Well, this is a good segue.
Okay.
Right? This is a good segue into the LLAMA 3.5, 450 billion parameter model that they just released. Because I think that is going to be what people ultimately build and run in their own places, right? Because again, you can run ChatGPT in your Azure thing, or you can run it, wherever. But yeah, with what Facebook just released this model called, I guess it's 3.5 or LLAMA 3.5. It's 450 billion parameter model that, according to the benchmarks, it has it competing with ChatGPT 4.0 and Claude 3.5 Sonnet, right? Which are two of like the latest things. Now, again, this thing is massive. You're not just going to be running this on your little
just wants to give it out.
Studio.
They also claim that it's more energy efficient, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I thought was interesting.
So, which gets back to our main premise. Never, ever, ever, ever underestimate Facebook engineers.
No, seriously.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, and so now you can interact with it if you go to meta.ai, if you're logged in. But you can use it there. You can use it on Grok, and it's right now it's still a little slow because they probably have to like optimize it for it or whatever. But if they could get that thing running and be really fast, I think that could be an absolute kind of game changer.
So who's our top
systems.
3 model? Well, going back to the premise that model makers are learning faster, are doing better, are more primed, right? Yeah. Which we've also had the other premise, which is models are a commodity. Yeah. Go back to the other premise, which is model makers are the leaders. Who's your top 3 what are your top 3 companies?
Well, if you just look at the chart, I think it's Meta's number 1, 4.0 is number 2, and Ultra is number 3. I think.
Meta is over 4.0.
Are they?
I think that, well, it was their numbers, their benchmarks.
Right,
but,
yeah. So, but nevertheless,
Everybody always releases these benchmarks, so they always have theirs at the top.
Yeah, we've got OpenAI, we've got Anthropic, we've got Meta, and we have Mistral. Right.
Google.
So Google's not even in the top
Google.
5.
Ultra is right up there, but yeah, I would.
Have you used it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's pretty awesome.
So
It's
Meta,
like Opus.
Meta is publicly traded San Francisco.
Yep.
OpenAI, nonprofit San Francisco.
Kind of,
Anthropic,
right.
Anthropic,
Profit, nonprofit.
Private funded.
Yeah.
San Francisco is
Mistral's French.
French.
Yeah, they're French.
That one was open source, but only for personal use.
Yeah,
Right?
and then
Like,
they just released a new large
Google's
model,
big
and it's
tech.
only for research. So
Yeah.
Mistral kind of did a rug pull. Like Mistral
Yeah.
kind of came out and said, "Oh, we're going to be the antithesis of like OpenAI, and we're going to make these open source models."
Yeah.
Exactly, like almost exactly the case that OpenAI started. We're going to be an open source. We're going to make this, and then they start seeing some of it, and they're like, "Ooh, maybe we shouldn't make this open source." Then
Yeah.
they probably see the dollar signs. They're like, "We definitely shouldn't make this open source."
Yeah.
Well, that's where you go to the other side of it, which is where's the money? Look at Perplexity, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to do this revenue sharing thing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all that, and like,
I'm still kind of curious. So because there was an announcement recently that Perplexity has partnered with a handful of other news
The
outlets.
Atlantic,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
yeah.
talked about that.
Wait, was the Atlantic OpenAI?
the Atlantic was OpenAI.
You're right. Yeah, maybe it was like the New York Times. I don't know.
Right.
Well, maybe I would have heard of that one.
But yeah,
But the point was, I want to talk more about the Search GPT and how that's basically a ripoff of Perplexity later. But
Oh yeah.
but Perplexity
Or
was
even what Find was doing from a coding perspective.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I
Find
forgot
was
about
great.
them.
Do they still exist?
Who?
Find.
Fine.
Oh come on, give them some
They
props,
still
baby.
exist?
Did
All right.
did they get bought?
I don't know.
I love Find.
yeah.
PHIND.com. It's great.
So-
It's great for coding.
Perplexity is a search engine, an AI powered search engine, basically, where they go and look up real web pages in real time and then try to distill that information in their results. Now they got in a little bit of a heat because they were basically like there's no attribution, and then they started doing attribution. Now they've got revenue sharing they're trying to do, which is nice, I guess. But is it ever going to be enough?
I think that there's a notion that if the search GPTs of the world, they know that they can't train on artificially created data forever.
Yeah.
The web has to continue to exist and content has to continue to get created.
Yeah.
And so they need to not just, in my opinion, just harness all the data and just own all the data and don't credit anyone for the data and don't compensate anyone for the data because eventually they're going to run out of data.
Yeah. I think there's a whole dark data space out there that like. So one of my clients was talking to this big consulting company who's wanting to build like a lot of AI things for their specific industry. And they're like, we're willing to partner with you guys if you'll give us some subject matter experts and you'd give us like a bunch of data to help train your model on. And the client's like, let's hear about this and and I'm just like, oh, like you're giving away your most valuable stuff, but I think that we're going to start seeing that as these other companies kind of start running out of just public web, training data, that they're going to start doing deals. They'll start doing deals with companies that have this data that's hidden behind their firewall.
Well, and that data has never really been invoked into the public space.
No, but if they came and said, hey, listen, company A, we'll pay you $30 million if you let us train on your data.
Yeah.
How many American companies would say no to that?
Right. Well, Salesforce's whole ads going on right now at the Olympics is bad guy AI. So they're positioning themselves as they will never ever sell your data in the exact situation you're talking
anyone
about.
who's on a board at a corporation right now, number one concern is privacy and security.
Yeah.
It's not adopting AI.
Yeah.
Because they know that if shit hits the fan, it's on them.
Yeah.
And they know that there's just this leak concept and people are getting, CrowdStrike, we've got all these different problems.
Yeah.
The risk is real. And that's why you're seeing actually the anti-AI space is coming into play. And that's why for me, it's right now, it's big tech trying to put their tools into enterprises, right? Because you already do business with them. And then it's that mid-market SaaS companies like the ones you've been talking about and looking at, where a guy that has minimal risk or maximum risk threshold, he's willing to take that just to be more productive, to go hunt down 1 million leads on LinkedIn or write better emails or generate better images. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from a what's up?
What's up?
I want to comment on this. You guys can cut it out if you want.
No, please.
No, you're fine.
I want to hear your guys' take.
Yeah.
That commercial, the Olympic commercial of Google asking. So he was like, my daughter really looks up to this Olympian. Can you write a letter helping her write a letter to the Olympian? And everyone freaked out.
Yeah.
So it's actually getting a ton of backlash.
Yeah.
So the question from our producer was, there was a commercial on the Olympics about I did see that, and that did it was a real world personal AI use case, right? Which is someone adored this athlete and they wanted to write a letter. Instead of writing it themselves, they just asked AI to do it. And it, sure enough, it did it. In fact, this morning, a kid asked me for a letter of recommendation for college. ChatGPT wrote it. Yeah. I gave it some pointers. Right. But that was a very simple use case of somebody.
They're very upset.
What were they upset about?
They took it down immediately.
Well,
it was like everything that you think negatively about AI, that ad's kind of showing you it. Like the inner, like taking out the personality, not letting the daughter use critical thinking about someone she actually looks up to, but letting a computer explain her.
I think there's very valid.
That is a valid argument.
I heard people make that argument, and my knee jerk was like, "Shut up!" Like, it's helping someone who's not a great, strong writer communicate to someone that they look up to. But I actually, after I thought about it for a little, I used critical thinking, and I was like, okay, they have a good point, because there is something very authentic about a child who can't write that well, and they're sitting there struggling like, Mommy, I want to say they're great. And I just actually saw a letter to my grandma when I was like in 3rd grade or something. Horrible writer. I was horrible, but it was very cute because I was very...
Well, the letter I wrote, for example, this morning, that letter of recommendation, it was really cheesy. I mean, I probably could have worked on it a little better, but it conveyed the point. It was well structured, but it wasn't going to pull any tears. Yeah. And the concept of the youth utilizing generative AI, especially for writing, is now I think about it, is a concern to me, because I became a good writer by having to write.
Just brute force.
And it doesn't take away the value where it can help you. Like, I'm trying to write a case study about a project that we worked on. So I gave it a bunch of details and I say, give me an outline of what I should do. I pick and choose. It's like, you should write about the overview of how it affected the product or the client. That's where I like it, because then I can put in my personal, like the real world or real life experiences into that, and I don't have to sit there and look at a blank screen for 2 hours and think, oh my gosh, I suck at writing. Right. But yeah, I think it goes too far.
So, but let's say that I start typing and I'm writing my letter, and I just start hitting the next word that the AI or that the type ahead is giving me, right? How is that any different?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can make an argument that it's different. So, nevertheless, I do think that the children thing does scare me a little bit, because the fact is that we learn to write and to communicate by writing and communicating.
We've never lived in a world where you didn't have to write.
Yeah, but let's take Rust, right? So now,
actually, we did. People would just go plagiarize off Google.
Yeah.
And I had people doing that in college, in grad school, that had never written, because they weren't not from this country, and all they did was math and science.
So to that, the Rust, like the Rust work, right? All of a sudden, there's some bug in the decoder, right? How are you without AI? AI
you just send it back to AI.
Yeah, you just send it back to AI. But nevertheless, you have no mental model of that code, right? Like, if we write it from scratch, we have that mental model.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, I was using a lot of the no-code solutions this week, and I thought, my God, AI is going to be so good in a couple of years at, I want to type out, hey, I want a workflow that does X, Y, and Z. And because it's using all these little modules, it's going to know exactly what code to plop in there, right? I have no does it matter?
Exactly.
Do I need to know? Do I need to know the ones and zeros? Like, I studied computer engineering, and computer architecture is insanely complicated. No one needs to know that anymore, except for a select few, right?
There's only one word that comes into mind for me with all of this, and it's productivity.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you say. I may be an unauthentic person. Yeah, you should have written the letter, girl. That was your hero. You should have,
We're so good. How old was this girl in this commercial?
She should have written the letter.
It wasn't her. It was like the dad.
The
It was the
dad.
dad.
You lazy son of a
you know
bitch.
what? But you know what? When somebody asks you an uncomfortable question in an email,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get you got to get home and cook dinner,
Yeah.
and it's 4:44 and you need to send a couple emails.
Right.
You know what? It's about productivity. Pick and choose your spots. But the whole concept of going, I'm not going to use this stuff because I just don't like it. I think blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think you're missing out.
It's also
on life.
Yeah.
It's a somewhat like, I don't know if it's elitist or I get the feeling of being like, that is unauthentic. The dad should have helped the kid. It stole a moment in their life that they could have looked back on and had this wonderful experience. But just because that wasn't a great application of it doesn't mean we should just throw it out.
No.
Like there's no use for it.
I found and this was maybe I think early last year. But there's a thing where I had a really hard time trying to communicate with my daughter on this topic. And every year we go through this and I'm just like, oh, this is going to suck. And so anyway, I go to ChatGPT and I kind of just lay out the scenario because anything that's like, that you have emotions involved with, right? And you just can't necessarily think very clearly.
Yeah.
I find and it broke it down. It was just like, here, she is growing. She's going to be independent. She's going to find herself. She wants to separate herself because she needs to go find blah, 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 blah. And broke it down to where I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, how could I convey that I understand this now?
Yeah.
And just say this, and it was just like, we had a moment like for the first time in 20 years that I was able to step back and get out of my own ego because ChatGPT helped me kind of see it from her perspective. And so for that was just absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot more difficulty in accepting AI that I'm seeing from normal people.
Yeah.
That I would not have expected. Because when productivity tools come around, people usually adopt them.
Yeah.
And to me, AI is a productivity tool.
100%.
It's not a person replacer.
Yeah.
It's not a heart replacer.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's to each his own. But I'm gonna be out here getting shit done.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Hey, can I take a quick restroom
I think
break?
we're
gonna wrap it up.
Good.
We're wrapping up, Jacob.
I'm just gonna pee my pants in. I
This
chugged a
has been the
kombucha
Big
and
Cheese Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Thanks. See you guys.